send your strangers packing, or I will. You'll send drugs.
I'd rather die than tell you.
You're already a dead man.
We're in a hole, and so was I.
Thought I seen my last firefight. Firefight.
Rip Wheeler just put his boot on a man's chest and asked him one question that could burn the entire Jackson family to the ground. And what happens next in this finale might be the most violent hour Dutton Ranch has ever given us. Dutton Ranch is about to end its first season in the most brutal way possible, and honestly, after watching this trailer frame by frame, I don't think anyone is walking away from episode 9 unscathed. Title alone tells you everything you need to know. It's called El Padrino, and if you know anything about how Taylor Sheridan writes his finales, you already know that title is not just for show. It means something. It's a warning. Let's start with the moment everyone is going to be talking about. Trailer opens with Rip Wheeler driving straight onto 10 Pedal Ranch, and within seconds, he's already throwing a punch at Rob Will Jackson. Not a warning shot. Not a threat. A real punch that knocks Rob Will straight to the ground, leaving him bleeding from a cut above his eye. And honestly, I think this is the moment fans have been waiting for since episode 1, because Rob Will has spent this entire season acting like he's untouchable. Like nobody can lay a hand on him because his mother runs the most powerful ranch in Texas. Well, that protection just ran out. With his boot pressed against Rob Will's chest, Rip asks him directly, "You running drugs?" And Rob Will, even bleeding on the ground, still has the nerve to say, "I'd rather die than tell you." That single line changes everything we thought we knew about the Jackson family's operation. 'Cause up until now, we all assumed this was just about stolen cattle. Austin already told Beth and Rip that 10 Pedal Ranch has been smuggling stolen livestock across the border from Mexico using fake documentation, and that's exactly what caused the foot and mouth outbreak that destroyed part of the Dutton herd. But if Rip is asking about drugs, that means the cattle operation might just be the surface. There could be something much darker moving underneath those trucks, and I genuinely don't think Beulah even knows about it. And that brings me to Beth. In this trailer, we see her standing there with the tally book in her hands, looking straight at Rob Will and telling him, "You're already a dead man." Not as a threat, as a fact. I think that tally book is going to become the single most important object in this finale, because if it contains records of shipments, payments, or anything connecting Rob Will to Wesaire's murder, then Beth finally has the proof she needs to end him for good. Remember, Rob Will killed Wes back in episode 1 because he suspected Wes was talking. If Beth can prove that with hard evidence, there's no lawyer, no family name, and no amount of money that saves Rob Will from what's coming. But here's where it gets even more complicated. While Beth and Rip are closing in on Rob Will, we also see Beulah being confronted by someone we've never fully seen before, a man warning her, "You'll send your strangers packing or I will." Based on everything we saw in episode 8, I'm almost certain that's Mariano, the same man who saved young Beulah years ago and who is also Joaquin's real father. And if that's true, this isn't just a fight between two ranching families anymore. This is about old debts, old blood, and a past that Beulah has been running from for years. Joaquin called his father for help after Sheriff Wade refused to take his murder accusations seriously, and honestly, I think Joaquin had no idea what he was actually unleashing when he made that call. Beulah herself doesn't stay quiet either. In one of the most emotional moments of the trailer, she shouts at Beth, "You were in a hole, and so was I." And I have to say, that line hit differently than I expected. Sounds like Beulah is finally admitting that her partnership with Mariano, whatever it actually is, started because she was desperate. Because she needed protection or money badly enough to make a deal she's regretted ever since. If that's the case, then Beulah isn't just a villain in this story. She's someone who made one terrible choice a long time ago, and now that choice is coming back to collect everything she has left. By the time we reach the final moments of the trailer, the tension explodes completely. Rip tells Beth, "They want us," and without even hesitating, she answers, "Then they're gonna get us." Everett, who just found love again with Beulah in episode 8, is shown grabbing a gun and saying, "Well, I ain't seen my last firefight." That line alone tells me Everett isn't going to sit this one out no matter how much he wants a peaceful life with Beulah now. He's a Navy veteran, and when the people he loves are in danger, He's not the type to stay behind. Then we see it. Masked men closing in. Oreana screaming somewhere in the distance. And finally, Beth, Rip, and Everett all standing together, firing their weapons in what looks like an all-out war. So the real question is, who are these masked men? Are they Mariano's people, sent to finish what he started? Or is this Rob Will's last desperate move to protect himself now that Rip and Beth know the truth? Either way, I think we are heading into the most violent, most emotional hour Dutton Ranch has produced so far, and in the next section I want to break down exactly what I think happens to Rob Will, why Oreana might be screaming, and what this means for Season 2. Let's talk about Oreana, because I think her scream in this trailer is one of the most important clues we've been given for the entire finale. She's Rob Will's daughter, and up until now, she's mostly stayed out of the family's dirty business. But the way she screams in that one tense shot tells me something happens to someone she loves, and honestly, I have two names at the top of my list for who that could be. It's either her father, Rob Will, or it could be Beulah herself. And the more I think about it, the more I lean toward Rob Will being the one who doesn't survive this finale. Here's why. Rob Will has been the central villain of this entire season. He murdered Wes in cold blood back in episode 1. He's been smuggling stolen cattle, possibly running drugs on top of that, and he's spent 9 episodes acting like nothing and no one could ever touch him. But Beth just called him a dead man while holding evidence in her hands, and Rip already put him on the ground once in this trailer alone. In almost every Yellowstone franchise finale, the villain who has caused the most damage is usually the one who pays the ultimate price by the end. I think Rob Will has finally run out of road, and if he does die in this episode, Oreana's scream makes complete sense. She would be watching the one parent she has left get taken from her, and that kind of loss would absolutely shatter someone who's already lost so much this season. But there's another possibility I can't ignore either. What if it's Beulah who gets hurt? Remember, she already survived one heart attack in episode 8, and now Mariano's men are apparently coming after her directly, warning her to get rid of Beth and Rip or face consequences. If Beulah refuses, which I fully expect her to do given how stubborn she's been all season, Mariano might not just be making empty threats. If something happens to Beulah after everything she's been through, after finally finding happiness again with Everett, that would be an absolutely devastating way to end the season, and honestly, it would break my heart a little too. She just got her second chance at love, and the timing of losing it now would be brutal. Now let's think about what this means for Rob Will's operation once the dust settles. If Rob Will is gone, someone has to take control of 10 Dutton Ranch, and that's where things get really interesting for Season 2. Joaquin has spent this entire season being overlooked, pushed aside, and treated like he doesn't matter compared to Rob Will. But he's also the one who made that call to his father, which means he's the one who set this entire war in motion. I think there's a real chance Beulah names Joaquin as her successor once Rob Will is out of the picture, especially if Joaquin proves in this finale that he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect the family, even if that means going against his own father's men in the end. But we also can't count out Oreana. If she loses her father in this finale, there's a real possibility that instead of running from the family business, she decides to step directly into it. Grief does strange things to people, and sometimes the person who wanted nothing to do with a legacy ends up being the one who fights hardest to protect it once it's threatened. If Beulah has to choose between Joaquin and Oreana to lead 10 Dutton Ranch into Season 2, I honestly think the show would lean toward Oreana because it would set up a much more emotional, much more personal conflict between her and the Duttons going forward. And then there's Carter. He's noticeably missing from most of the major confrontation scenes in this trailer, which tells me he's probably still off the ranch dealing with the fallout from his fight with Rip and Beth. I said it before in my breakdown of episode 8, and I'll say it again here. Carter needs this season to end with him finally growing up. If he shows up in the middle of this gunfight, unprepared and reckless, trying to prove himself to people he's already disappointed, that could easily be the moment that puts his life in danger. Sometimes the character who's been the most immature all season is exactly the one the writers choose to put in the most danger, just to force that growth we've all been waiting for. What really strikes me about this entire trailer is how personal everything has become. This isn't just about land or cattle anymore. Beulah is fighting for the family she's spent her whole life protecting. Rip and Beth are fighting for a home they've barely had time to settle into. Everett is fighting for a woman he just got back after all these years apart. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Joaquin is fighting for a father he barely knows against people he used to call his own family. Every single character walking into this finale has something to lose, and that's exactly what makes this feel like it's going to be the most emotionally devastating episode of the entire season. Now let's talk about the gunfight itself, because that's where this entire finale is going to live or die, quite literally. From what we can see in the trailer, this isn't going to be a quick shootout that wraps up in 2 minutes. Masked men are shown closing in on the ranch, and Rip, Beth, and Everett are all seen taking up arms together, standing side by side. That tells me this is a coordinated attack, not some random act of violence. Someone planned this, someone gave the order, and I think that someone is Mariano. He already sent a warning to Beulah earlier in the trailer, telling her to send her strangers packing or he would do it himself. Well, Beulah didn't listen, and now it looks like Mariano is following through on exactly what he promised. Here's what worries me the most about this confrontation. Rip and Beth have handled plenty of threats this season, but they've never faced something this organized before. Mariano isn't some small-time rancher trying to protect his turf. Based on everything we learned in Episode 8, this is a man with real power, real resources, and real reach, someone who was willing to send his own son away years ago just to keep him safe from whatever life Mariano was living. That's not the profile of someone who bluffs. If Mariano is sending masked men to the Dutton Ranch, he's not doing it to scare them. He's doing it to end this once and for all. So who actually survives this fight? Honestly, I think Beth and Rip make it through, simply because the show has already been renewed for Season 2, and it's hard to imagine either of them being written out this early. But I don't think everyone walks away untouched. Everett just told us he hasn't seen his last firefight, and lines like that in this franchise usually come right before something terrible happens to the character who says them. I really hope I'm wrong about this, because after everything Everett and Beulah just found together in Episode 8, it would be devastating to lose him right when their story finally started to feel hopeful again. And then there's the bigger picture. Once this battle is over, whoever survives is going to be left standing in the wreckage of an entire season's worth of secrets. The truth about the cattle smuggling. The truth about whatever Rob Will was really running under everyone's noses. The truth about Mariano and what he actually did to end up estranged from his own son. All of it is going to come out in this finale, and I think the fallout from that truth is going to shape everything we see in Season 2. Because here's the thing about finales like this one. It's never really about who wins the gunfight. It's about who's left to pick up the pieces afterward and what kind of person that makes them. If Rob Will really does die in this episode, the 10-petal ranch becomes a power vacuum overnight, and whoever steps into that role, whether it's Joaquin or Oreana, inherits a legacy soaked in blood and broken trust. If Beulah survives, she has to live with the knowledge that her past finally caught up with her family, no matter how hard she tried to keep it buried. And if Mariano walks away from this untouched, that means Beth and Rip haven't actually won anything. They've just survived to fight an even bigger war in Season 2, one where their enemy already knows exactly who they are and exactly what they're capable of. That's honestly what makes this finale so terrifying to think about. Every single choice these characters made all season, every secret they kept, every person they trusted when maybe they shouldn't have, it's all about to collide in one single night. And once the smoke clears, Dutton Ranch is never going to look the same again. Some of these characters we've grown attached to over 9 episodes might not make it to Season 2 at all, and that's a hard thing to sit with, especially after everything this family has already been through. So here's what I want to know from you. Who do you think doesn't survive this finale? Do you think Rob Will finally gets what's coming to him, or is Beulah the one who pays the ultimate price for the deal she made years ago? Is Mariano really the biggest threat Beth and Rip have faced yet, or is there someone even more dangerous waiting behind him? Drop your predictions in the comments below, because I genuinely want to know what you think happens when this episode drops. If this breakdown helped you make sense of everything coming in the Dutton Ranch finale, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. And if you want more deep dives like this one covering every twist, every trailer, and every theory the moment new episodes drop, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single breakdown. This season has given us heartbreak, betrayal, and now what looks like an all-out war, and I don't think any of us are ready for how it's going to end. I'll see you in the next one.